these other drugs, the psychedelics, tend to work by 5-HT2A receptors, and how the 2A receptors affect glutamate or NMDA receptors, and that's the main excitatory form of neurotransmission in the brain. And as we just said, for the first time ever, these illicit drugs, they're illegal, and we're not giving medical advice here, we're not licensed to, but this is going to be the future of medicine. No matter how much research has been done with new antidepressants, no real progress has been made. In fact, significant major antidepressants such as mirtazapine, such as reboxetine, such as buprenorphine do not work. They don't work.
Do you know something? We're talking about you talk about ketamine and MDMA and all these sort of things. And the last podcast we talked about structure, and there's got to be a level sort of structure on how these things are distributed, and it comes down to distribution. Because let's face it, you want to take ketamine, all you have to do is go to Glastonbury, and I'm sure you can get all the ketamine MDMA you want.
Is that you can't, because they're not new products.
Right.
Then the pharmaceutical companies are not really going to make huge amounts of money.
That's right. But then again, the pharmaceutical industry are then controlling the supply of this, and ultimately, if you think about it, there was someone who actually worked for a pharmaceutical industry who was a bit of a whistleblower, said, actually, they're not in the business of actually curing. They're in the business of actually creating disease, because the thing is that's
good point.
Yeah, because they're in the business of actually making profit, not in the matter of curing it.
Now here's the other thing: because we talked about epigenetics, with depression is now the biggest cause of illness and death in the world, whereas only 20 years ago it was something like the third commonest. Now it's the most important. Now, it's almost a dead certainty that it does cause epigenetic changes. For instance, I said that perhaps depression is now an epigenetic phenomenon, and if you treat it properly, you don't need to suffer from recurrent depression. And I also said it'd be interesting to see whether giving a depressed person a demethylator will then prevent them transmitting it to the next generation. Because the other option is, if we're increasing the amount of depression in society, perhaps we're going to genetically transmit this predisposition to the next generation.
I think we just need to man up sometimes, and just become a little bit stronger and a little bit more focused and determined in what you actually want, and develop your purpose and have a vision as where you want to go, and and work towards that.
But it's going to reach the stage where it's going to be medically negligent not to give someone one of these demethylators versus an antidepressant.
Is it not medically negligent to actually give people medication when they shouldn't actually have it either?
Absolutely right.
And how do you determine that? Because it is one doctor's opinion over another. Because doctors do all differ for an opinion. They all, they may all relearn from the same crib sheet, but they don't actually interpret it.
You see, a GP is obviously not as expert, and they will cast a net and probably overprescribe, because it's safer to do that than underprescribe. But of course, you're right. One of the main issues, as we said time and again, is social and government, because that's what's making people depressed. Now, we're going to have to wrap up there right now.
Okay, you got to shoot off. Okay, guys. So
those are the game changers.
This is just a quick one. Well, we'll probably cover this in more detail in future podcasts. Okay, guys, thanks very much for listening, and we'll speak to you next week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.